Welcome back, everybody. Just did my Spyderco intro to the real Spyderco review that is coming, which is going to be on the Salt series, where I'm going to take my VG10 version of my Dragonfly 2 with my new Salt version of the Dragonfly 2, and we're going to submerge them in heavy salt water for 1 month, and we're going to see what happens. You say that's a poor use for a knife. You're just going to at least ruin the one and maybe damage the other. It's okay. We're going to do it in the name of science, and we're going to put the Spydercos to the test and see if they are as good in salt and as good at corrosion resistance as they like to claim. We're going to find out. What I really want to talk about here is I've been thinking about getting into Leatherman style knives and stuff. I mean, my go-to carry knives lately have been knives like the Hercules or the Swiss Champ. Having, decent little blades for basic cutting tasks, and then having a multitude of tools and pliers and scissors and even a magnifying glass. I've been using screwdrivers, especially on this Hercules, where I've got a locking blade, very cool, small sets of pliers and things like that. And then underneath, the pliers and the scissors, you've got these flip out screwdrivers. You got a large Phillips head, and then there's a longer skinny one that's not quite for like glasses or something, but there are times I've needed like a fine Phillips head, and that came to the rescue. I had it on me. And so the first one I tried out was this Gerber, and it's okay. The tools are okay. The blade isn't that great. This is a $30 knife. The blade's locked, but I mean, look, it's just a cheesy kind of little blade. I mean, it's fine for just opening a box, but you're not going to get much else. The edge is not that great. It's not great steel. There's excessive wobble in the thing. But I was like, well, what if I got a better one? And I've been mulling over getting the damn Swiss Champ or the Swiss Tools. I think it's the Spirit MX. I just don't want to spend $150 on a damn thing. So what did I get? Well, I got this one. It's called a Roxon Flash Elite. And I did order mine with the D2 steel blade. All the specs, some of the specs and things, you can pause the video and read it right there. Comes in a nice little pouch. Comes with a replacement set of the carbide, whatever, cutting. So that's kind of cool. So in your pliers, you got the wire cutters. And in case you nick, normally like on a multi-tool like this, if you try to cut a nail or something that was fairly hard and you wreck that, you're pretty much screwed. I mean, that's it. If you want to repair it, you're going to have to go and get a new set of pliers. So a lot of them are starting to come with these kinds of blades that you can unscrew and attach new ones. Put a little red Loctite or blue Loctite in there, and you got a new set. So they give you a spare set. And I'm assuming you might be able to order new ones from them. But it came with the tool, the new blades, and new screws. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to go over that with that tool and make sure that these things are all tightened and Loctited. But so what I liked about this one was the size and the ergonomics. Because one of the things I noticed about the Gerber was that, even let's look past the fact that blade kind of sucks. This is what you're handling. They're not sharp like going to cut you edges, but there's all these sharp angles and harsh points and thin. To use this and grip it is horribly uncomfortable. I mean, let's just be honest, it's terrible. The action's not that great. I mean, it'll work. It's $29. You can have a basic set of tools with you. But I saw this one, and what I noticed was the fit and finish. You got the pocket clip, which is removable. Everything is rounded. This is more like a Swiss Army knife when you look at the precision of the machining. The fact that it was D2 steel and not whatever tin can stuff that's made out of. Another thing that I noticed was one-handed opening and a significant beefy blade. I mean, and it's locking. So if I'm looking at my Swiss Champ, huge difference in the blades. And it is D2 steel. And it locks. It actually has a liner lock. It's not a super stiff, stout, thick liner lock, but it's kind of more like what you'd find on the Swiss Army knives. But it does give you that little bit of added safety. What I also noticed was that the tools here, instead of you trying to dig in with your fingernails and busting a nail, or if your nails are short, sometimes you can't physically grab them, there's a lever that swings all your tools out, you can see what it is you want. And these tools, once they're open, are actually fairly light and easy to get, too. It's not super tight, but they don't have really any wobble. And you can adjust the pivot point here with a Torx bit. So you've got a screwdriver with a file. No hacksaw, though, as far as cutting through metal, but you can file something if you needed to. You got a Phillips head screw. You have a small screwdriver with some kind of wire-ish stripper sort of thing. Similar, I guess, that little blade you find on the Victorinox electrician. You have an awl with a fairly sharp chisel kind of scraping blade. And you have a combo of bottle opener, can opener, and little screwdriver. And any one of these tools clicks into place, and now you have a locking tool. All of them use the same lock. This is what brings them out. When it locks into place, you push it this way, and that will release the lock, and you can close it, and they all lock in, and they all sit flush. And you have these nice rounded edges, so when you hold this and grip it, it actually feels pretty damn good. On the other side, you have a full-size wood saw that, click, locks into place. This one locks into place with a liner lock. That's the only tool on this side, except for when you open that up, and then I think this one was a little tricky to get out the first time. Don't remember exactly how that popped out, but there is in here let's see if I can get this thing to come out. It's hard with your thumbnail. I haven't quite figured this piece out, but what you've got here is a fire starter stick. There's this piece of black plastic. I just haven't figured this out, and I don't want to necessarily sit here dicking with it while we're sitting here talking. So, well, I'll just take this and just pop it out. Memo. There was a way to unlock this. I just don't remember what it was. Anyway, once this pops out, what you have is a whistle. Don't want to do it too loud, wake my wife up. You also have a ferro rod. You got a fire starter that you can sit here and spark and start a fire. And you've got a whistle. That was kind of cool. Like, that was a nice, interesting little piece of survival equipment. And then when you're done with that, you just snap it back into place. So, whistle, fire striker, a pretty aggressive saw. I haven't tried it on a piece of wood, but it looks pretty dang aggressive. Kind of like the sack saw. We'll have to try it on a board to see if it's as good, because this is arguably one of the best little saws out there. But it's got teeth and it's cut in both directions. It's kind of similar. And it's a decent enough length to, it's certainly longer than what you'd get on this. Not by much, a few millimeters longer, but a little bit shorter than that. But the Hercules is a much bigger knife. So you got that, and then you got a set of pliers. And they're pretty decent. Like, this is a nice size tool. I like that it's comfortable. The machining on this is all so much nicer than this stamped steel with rough edges. Lots of sharp points, lots of little things that can be like digging at you. They put some thought into the ergonomics. Also, much less wobble. I don't know if it's possible to get something with no wobble. There's that little bit. See that? That's it. As opposed to a 1/4 inch. That's a lot of wobble. And you feel that when you're trying to hold it and grip it. You feel it shifting and moving around if you're using the knife. But when you look at this as and I talked about in the last video, it kind of comes down when you're trying to decide what you want. Do you want something that's a good knife, for a slip joint? I find myself using this little pen blade actually more often than I'm using the big blade if I'm just cutting something small. But, you've got all that. You have that, and it has some other tools, including a pair of pliers, which is going to be limited. You're going to be limited to something like, you might be able to fit a 10 millimeter head of a bolt in there, but you're not going to be able to get as much grip on it because, you're going to be that kind of wide open. You're barely on it. You're not kind of getting any real leverage there. But, or do you want something that is better as a set of pliers and wire cutters and things you might use around the house or in the garage. But then you got a fire starter, you got a saw, you got your dang screwdrivers, regular and Phillips, and a wire stripper, and you got a reamer and a bottle opener and a can opener, and you got a file. And then when you want a knife, you got a single hand opening and single hand closing. Like, this is probably one of the better tools I've seen in a while. The lock on it is better because it's a liner lock. You know, this one you're pinching with both, which means it's kind of hard. And these things are sharp. Like, the edges are not smoothed out. So when you're pulling on that, it's digging into your finger and into your thumb. As opposed to this, which is slightly smaller. Weight is about the same. It's not a lightweight by any means, but it's around 7.5 ounces. It's in the same range as these anyway. I mean, when you look at the Swiss Champ and you look at this is taller, it's thicker, but it's less across. But in your pocket, that might not protrude as much. But when you want an actual pocket knife, which might be the thing you go to the most, you've actually got a nice, what looks to be a pretty decent blade. D2 is a good everyday knife steel. It's tough, it's strong, it holds a decent edge, and it's actually pretty corrosion resistant. So as far as, you know, is it sharp out of the box? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Out of the box, that ain't bad at all, man. Push test. It's doing a push test. I don't even know if that Gerber would cut paper. So that's like a decent flat grind. And you've got a liner lock. I feel like this is nice. These are $45. You say, oh, they're made in China. Yes, so is Civivi and Wee and Kaiser and CJRB and Artisan Cutlery and a whole bunch of other blades that are, you know, decent blades. And I know that I take so much heat on my channel for saying that Chinese knives are good. You know what? I think they are. A lot of them are. I'm not talking about the crappy gas station knives, because guess what? The U.S. makes some shit like that too. Some of them are called case. So depending if you got a Friday afternoon knife versus a Tuesday morning knife. But this, I like that the pocket clip doesn't move around a lot because it's got a hole there that indexes. And if you want to take that off, you can get rid of it just so it's even flatter in your pocket. But I think as an EDC tool here, you know, both of these other ones make big compromises. This is a great everyday little tinkering knife set. If you're just wrenching on something small and you need to grab something or twist it or tighten or loosen a little nut, you got something here. But it's not like using a regular pair of pliers. You only got the pressure of your thumb. You're limited to the size of whatever will fit. It's fairly narrow, so the amount of surface area that it grips whatever you're doing is relatively small, and you can only get so much leverage on something that short with your finger. So when you got pliers, but you know, it's going to be very limited in use, and maybe for something that just fits in your pocket, that's all you need. But you got corkscrews, and you got awls, and you got scissors, and you got a Phillips screwdriver, and you know, as an everyday EDC, I think the Swiss Champ is kind of perfect. If you want something a little bigger and beefier and has a locking blade and you don't mind that extra size, but it gives you a real handful, maybe this is what you take camping and this is what sits in your pocket every day. But if you're going to be camping or in the woods, maybe you take something a little bigger. And I wanted to like the idea of these, but when I looked at them all, the blades were all small. For me, this is a nice to have, these tools. I can find a use for that. I wonder if this one's a whistle too. No, not a whistle. I don't know what the hell that is. Not sure what those plastic pieces are. Maybe they're just to fill in the gap or something. Not sure. But I don't think that was a use or anything that maybe I didn't understand. I don't know. But here, to get a decent set of pliers, and as far as pliers go, I mean, those are pretty decent, you made too many compromises. Like the things I'm going to use most often, it does have a screwdriver and stuff, and it seems like it's okay. But the knife is the thing that I use the most. And that is where they cut the corners. And that's where a lot of them cut the corners. A lot of these types of tools are pliers first, and then they'll pack some other stuff in the handle, kind of like an afterthought. Some do it a better job than others. That one doesn't do it well at all. This is a nice size knife. I could get some work done. And because this is all nicely beveled and rounded and smooth, I mean, the way they round it is almost like a bar of wet soap. That to me is comfortable. Like I could sit there cutting and doing something for a while before this gets uncomfortable in my hand. It's not going to be as comfortable as this just because of the wide, awkward size. But I feel like this one makes less of a compromise. It's only $14 more than the Gerber. Granted, I haven't tried a Leatherman Wave or their new $240 Arc, or the $150 to $200 Victorinox versions. But for $46 and to be able to get D2 steel, which is a steel that I respect enough to use, I have it on several of my knives. That is nice. That's a blade I can use every day. And then when I need screwdrivers and other tools, or I actually need pliers, I've got a nice set of pliers that I can really get my meaty hand on and get in there and grip. It's more needle nose, but it's fairly, I mean, it looks fairly well made. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these screws, make sure they're tight. I got a little bit of Loctite just to make sure they ain't going nowhere. Actually, that's red. I need to get blue just because at some point I might need to change it. But for $46, and it comes with a leather pouch if you want to carry it on your belt. And you've got a pocket clip that doesn't wiggle and move around. And it doesn't have a lot of play in it. There's very little wiggle. It's like a millimeter of wiggle. Really nice job. That to me is a nice set. That is the Roxon Flash Elite. And when you order it, there's two steels. Pay the extra couple dollars and get the D2. Get the better blade steel. And here, I feel like this is a much better, it's like these are at one end of the spectrum where you got all kinds of tools and it's a good knife and on the pliers. This is like, you know, decent enough pliers and everything else is This kind of strikes the chord in the middle. I would say the only downside to this one is it doesn't have a lot of tools. But what I like best is the construction and how everything's nice and smooth and round. It's very comfortable. You've got the fire stick already built in. And the tools that it does have are decent. I mean, that's got a lot of them covered. And I like the way that these lock. And I like the way they all fold in nice and tight. I mean, even compare this. You look at this, it's all a bunch of jagged edges. So your skin, when you're gripping it, is going over all these contours and it digs into your hand. Even sometimes when you grip this, you have all these different levels, which creates hot spots. They do it here. They keep everything largely flat. And so it really minimizes those hot spots. You want to see your tools, boom, you flip them out, you go, oh, which one do I need? They're not loose, they're not flopping around, but you're not trying to dig them out and breaking a nail. And not that I'm saying, oh, broke a nail, but you know, sometimes you break and tear a nail, it actually hurts, right? You tear it down to the bed, trying to dig something out, and then for the next 3 days, every time you eat a salty French fry and you get salt in it, it stings like a bitch. That's what I'm talking about. I don't care if my nails are broken. But being able to just flip the tools out and see what you got and go, oh, yeah, you know what? I need this one. So let's put those ones away. Click, locks into place. I can use it, unlike using the awl on the back here, which can be a bitch if you got short fingernails, but then you're kind of limited on what you can get. Here, I feel like I got more control than holding it like a T-handle. T-handle is good for giving you power, but when you're holding it, it can be awkward. It's better than not having it, but I'd kind of rather have a lot of my tools like a screwdriver going, you know, in that direction. So, and that's what I've got. I got my Phillips, locks into place, and I got my screwdriver, and I'm using it more like I would use a conventional screwdriver. The lock is nice and rounded, so it doesn't push painfully into your thumb when you use it. And that blade is nice. That's probably the nicest blade on any of the tools that I looked at. I looked at a bunch of the Leathermans from the $40 and $80 ones up to the $250 one, and they're okay, but I didn't feel like they were worth 2 or 5 times the cost of this one. So maybe they are. Maybe I have to go play with one, but I'm really, really impressed with this bad boy. I'm going to go carry in this today and see how I like it, but that's nice just walking around with a toolkit. You're kind of prepared for anything, and it's not much bigger than this. And you still got a saw, you still got a nice big blade. It's a locking blade. You got the basic tools. This has more advanced tools and scissors and stuff like that. And tweezers, you know, and there's some advantages to the sack. My sacks ain't going anywhere. But after seeing, I thought this was like, it's all right. It was a little bit interesting. And now I'm looking at that going, this is much better design. Way better design. I like what they're doing. Keep an eye on that company. I know they're Chinese and all, whatever. You guys can hate me and move to China, dickhead. And it's like, ugh, whatever, dude. It just doesn't mean I'm a communist. So that is it. The Roxon S803E, which stands for Elite. So if you have this, you will be elite, allegedly. So there you have it. Nice, nice tool. I'm going to use it and report back over time and see how often I'm actually carrying it. A lot of knives I get and they seem like a good idea. And then over time, I'm like, So we'll see how I like it as time goes on. But out of the gate, it's just a beautiful design. That's a really nice design. I love that one-handed opening, man. And that's a blade I can use. So, all right, guys, I'll stop talking. There you have it. I'll talk to you soon.